And I do think we actually disagree on like quite a few things.
I may have misunderstood the question.
Yeah.
Was
I
it?
think we disagree with Republicans on or with each other.
Where we don't fall in line.
So I thought the question was about how to like bridge the gap of. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Sort of. I just
don't
think that this might help bridge that gap. So, I think to the audience, or at least to me, the perception I get is that you guys are sort of like a Republican institution, I guess. But to combat that or to help bridge polarization, I'm asking a policy thing that you disagree with Republicans.
Okay.
Or agree with Democrats.
Well, I do think it's important to say that we won't bridge that gap as long as one side believes the other is Nazis, and
Sure.
you just think
But
the
I
other
don't,
side
so.
is misinformed. You know, I mean, thinking you're misinformed, that can be helped. You thinking we're evil, and not you, but I mean, so
Yeah.
unfortunately, like, I don't actually think that that gap can be bridged until that has to stop, because if you think someone's a Nazi, you're not gonna like be like, oh, you agree on socialized medicine maybe?
Sure.
So, you see what I'm saying? But, yeah, certainly we don't necessarily fall in line with Republicans all the time.
I think one big flaw of the Republican Party is that there are a whole host of issues where when Democrats have bad ideas, Republicans offer no ideas. Healthcare is a great example. I don't know what the Republican healthcare platform is at this point. I think there are a bunch of issues where they just offer nothing other than saying Democrats' ideas suck. Well, yeah, they suck, but I'm afraid people will choose bad ideas over no ideas. God, if we're gonna bash Republicans, I could be here all day. They're weak, they're useless, they're horrible strategically, they're horrible with marketing. If we're talking about a policy I disagree with Trump on, red flag laws would be one of them. Hopefully he'll change his view on that. I don't know what the hell I agree with Democrats on at this point. Is there something? Can we find unification somewhere and find one thing?
I know that I do. I'm not gonna lie. I'm struggling right now, and I'm trying really hard. I know, because I just can't think of it right now. But I will say, look, one thing I'll say is that there are many things that Democrats are passionate about that, like, the passion behind the issue, I kind of am there with them on. And then they go into this almost like religious ideology where they lose me. Like the climate. Like, I think it's a very noble cause to take good care of our planet, right? And to do whatever we can to ensure that our planet remains as healthy and thriving for as long as it possibly can. Then when you go into climate change and carbon emissions and how the whole thing becomes very sort of like pseudo-religious to me, you lose me at that point. But I mean, I could certainly find common ground with Democrats about like ecological issues and saving the planet and things. And there was another one I was just thinking. And in terms of the Republicans, it's interesting because I believe I'm with him. Like I'm a registered Republican. The party bothers me very, very much for very, very many reasons. But I actually think that the party is becoming kind of more and more socially liberal as time goes on. So I'm actually having less and less contention with some of their policies. I did not like it when the Republican Party was extremely rigid on abortion for a number of reasons. I think it's a losing issue for the Republican Party. I think it's costing us elections. And I personally think that I understand, I actually know people, I'm friends with people who are the product of rape. So believe me, I understand the value of life, even if that life is conceived in a hideous, violent act. But I cannot fathom forcing somebody to carry a pregnancy when it is the product of a brutal and traumatic experience in their life. I can't do it. So I do think that there needs to be exceptions for abortions. I do think that there has to be a period of time of this.
And I couldn't disagree with you more. So
Yeah.
we're not a hive mind. I very much disagree with that.
Yeah, totally. But the thing is, I think that more and more Republicans are trending in that direction. I think they're both realizing it's a losing issue, and I also think that they're just softening on exceptions.
I'll just add really quickly, my response is probably going to be the most radical on this.
Yes!
I believe that, well, first of all, everyone here is operating on some type of worldview. So your moral justifications, when you go to vote, you're voting based off of your pre-existing worldview. So now the question is, whose worldview is the correct worldview? Me personally, I believe in God, and I believe that He is the standard of good. And I believe when a society deviates from that standard, you get chaos. And so what I believe about the Democrat Party is, to my knowledge, I can't think of anything I agree with them on. As far as Republican Party, there's lots of things I disagree with them on. This is why I say that I am not affiliated with any specific platform. I go where the truth is, and I have to recognize that there has to be an absolute standard for how humanity is supposed to operate. And if we deviate from that, we get the mess that we have now. And people could disagree with me on that, that's totally fine, but I think we're seeing the fruits of what that looks like.
This guy's been waiting very patiently. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, I think it's been really interesting hearing all of you guys' differences in terms of what you guys believe. But curious that you guys are all Trump supporters. I would probably characterize myself as being more of like a traditional conservative. But I think we can all kind of see still some issues with what Trump has done, not just his rhetoric, but also actions. So I kind of want to reconcile that, right? So I think one, we can talk about, for example, I'm from Georgia, by the way, so how he contacted, for example, the Secretary of Elections for both Georgia and Nevada. I think that's pretty purely unconstitutional to do that. You can't just go ahead and try to challenge elections, despite being your same party's candidate or not. Like, I think that's a pretty valid issue to talk about. I think also something that we can all agree is an issue is, for example, how Kamala just randomly came on the ticket, kind of how Biden dropped out, right? I think that's generally like accepted upon. But that was kind of a party practice, right? That's more of an issue within the party than it is within, for example, democracy. Because it's the party's right to choose who kind of represents them on the ticket, as long as you're following within federal election guidelines. I'd probably say Trump had a very similar issue, given the fact that he never attended a single one of the Republican debates, given the fact that he was not the incumbent president at the time. You might disagree on whether he won the 2020 election or not, but at the end of the day, he was not the incumbent at the time, and he chose not to go to those debates. I will give him some leeway on, for example, the fact that he didn't attend the presidential debates, given the fact that there was actually candidate switch, right? So I think that we can kind of come to consensus on. But given the fact that he never did a lot, first of all, he tried to violate and overturn the election in a very unfair way. There's one thing if you want to do it maybe through Congress or have an appeal like that, but to directly contact the Secretary of Elections from multiple states and try to overturn, I really haven't
talked about that.
Yeah, for sure.
What is your understanding of what happened on that phone call in Georgia? Can you give him, he needs the mic. Sorry. What is your understanding of what took place on that phone call in Georgia?
Right, so I could be wrong, so feel free, but based on my understanding, was saying, hey, could you relook at the elections and recount the elections multiple times in places where the votes wasn't even close enough to be called a recount?
Well, what's wrong with that, though? That's actually not what I expected you to say, but what is wrong with that?
I mean, there's certain policies.
He said, yeah. Could you look at it again and just make sure?
No, look at it again and to overturn some parts of it, right? So that's kind of.
Well, no, he never said overturn anything.
Could you give me a rundown of what
I can, yeah. So, was that the phone call you and Irene? No, that was the Ukraine phone call. Yeah. Yeah. Mikey and Irene, we actually got the transcript and did a reading of it. But I feel like I'm one of the few people in the entire country who actually listened to the Georgia phone call. It's only an hour. But I think 99% of the people in the country didn't listen to it, and so once again they're susceptible to the lies of the left-wing media. So many people in this country believe that Trump called the Georgia Secretary of State and the governor and told them, "I need you to find me 11,000 votes. I need you to." That's what you think?
Yeah. That's
wrong.
Yeah.
That's not what happened. So what he did is they had compiled a list of abnormalities that had happened just in the state of Georgia. And this was a list that had been looked at by a lot of different people who'd gone through the election results, and they had them categorized, votes that were tabulated by people who are dead. You know, there were 2,000 votes, 3,000 votes. Convicted felons, X number of votes. Illegal immigrants or unregistered, or people who moved out of the state, X number. So they had all these different categories, and then the list of numbers of the amounts of people, and it added up to a staggering number. I mean, I think it was something in the neighborhood of 80, 90, 100,000 votes or something like that. And so at that point, the narrative was that he was losing Georgia by 11,000 votes. And he was saying to them, look, we've already discovered X number of convicted felons. We've already discovered X number of dead people who've moved out of the state. He said, I only need you to find me 11,000 votes. And he's like, I've got 80, 90,000 or illegitimate votes right here. I only need 11,000. He wasn't saying go out and find me 11,000 votes and make me the president. He was saying we have more than 11,000 and we could show you. No one was interested in seeing it.
But given the fact that Georgia, at least that it still is now, and at the time was controlled by Republicans and in all levels of Congress? Why
Yeah,
not-
it's weird.
All over the state. Why do you think that wasn't changed or overturned, or like, do you think that was the real issue, or I'm just trying to get your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's no way to answer this without putting my tinfoil hat on, but I mean, I look at a situation like that, and all I can think of is that somebody got to him. I mean, look, if you're in a situation where you know the might of the media is behind Joe Biden, that things are trending in the direction that the Democrats are going to push Joe Biden into office come hell or high water, and you feel like there's a razor-thin possibility that Donald Trump, even if he rightfully won that election, he's not going to get inaugurated, just because all of the machines are in power. Are you going to side with the person that you know is going to become the president anyway, or are you going to side with the person that you know is going to lose? I think that there are oftentimes in politics situations in which the person knows they're doing the wrong thing, but they also know that the person that they would be doing the right thing for is not going to win or is going to get pushed out. So they're going to do the wrong thing, knowing they're supporting the person who's going to take power. I can't say for sure that's what he did, but I can say that would be, I think, a reasonable explanation for why somebody would look at that situation and who's a Republican and not say and to Mikey's point, Republicans don't stand up for other Republicans. I'm living proof of that, and so are a number of other people. I don't know the answer, but I can tell you that's one explanation.
Well, and the thing is, you don't even have to put your tinfoil hat on. Read the Time magazine piece that they did, the history of the shadow campaign to fortify the election. It blatantly said there were people trying to control information, change voting laws, allow mail-in ballots, and this is where when we talk about things that maybe I'm out of step with most people on the right on, this is something where I differ a bit, is that I think the election was stolen, but I think it was allowed to be stolen by the Republican Party getting outplayed in every conceivable way. This happened right out in the open, and it was allowed to. So fair.
And to address Trump I don't think Trump is above reproach. I just think, pinpointing the rhetoric as being the cause of violence, I take issue with that. But I do take issue with a lot of what Trump has done, especially as someone who's arguing pro-life, as I've already said. But as far as Trump not attending debates, the American people had the chance to reject that and say, you're not going to attend debates, you're not our guy. We didn't. We nominated Trump overwhelmingly as our nominee. And while I understand that what went on the other side, may be constitutional, for the side that constantly claims they're saving democracy, I just find it, a little bit, it rings false, right? And obviously, Kamala covered for Joe Biden. I mean, what, did she not know that he wasn't doing well, and that's why he dropped out so late, that they couldn't have an actual primary process where people were not disenfranchised of their vote? They disenfranchised, their own party essentially, and then just appointed a nominee. And while that may be constitutional, I don't think it's representative of democracy or of listening to people, because she's been wildly unpopular for the past 4 years, and now suddenly overnight she's magically popular. But we did have the opportunity in the GOP to say no to Donald Trump, and we didn't. So, I mean, he didn't have to attend the debates, really,
But I think
we could have rejected that.
I think the issue of that, you also deal with like right-wing populism, right? I think that's, I don't remember who brought it up, but I think someone else brought it up before.
Right.
I think that's still not okay, right? For example, I think still to this day, a lot of Trump's policy is not clear in terms of what he wants to get done, right? Obviously, like overall, like for example, we know like his general stance on like immigration in terms of foreign policy. We have concepts of an idea, but for something that's affecting, I guess, especially in California, I'm not from here, but especially in California, like housing, he still hasn't said anything. I do agree Kamala's plans don't make any sense with a $25,000 down payment, but without having any sort of plan, how can you even say, okay, this guy is better than that? I can 100% get behind the fact that Kamala's housing plan doesn't make sense, but if the other side doesn't even have a plan, like, you can't even evaluate, we're evaluating nothing at that point. I still have an issue with some of that. For example, like during those debates where he could have actually potentially gotten out more of his plan, we could have actually known what he was running on and what he was going to change from 2020 to now, right? Or from 2016 to now, right? So like that just wasn't there for the average voter that wasn't super pro-Trump. I would say probably like me, that was still more on the conservative side, to actually be like, okay, evaluate, does this even make sense? Does it not make sense? Is he even going to win in November? Is someone else going to win, right? So all of those discussions, all those debates and topics just could not happen in that time frame. And I take real issue with that. I do agree that 100%, as I said before, Kamala's taking over the party is also wrong, but I can't discount this just because that happened. Does it kind of make
Fair
sense?
enough.
Yeah.
The Pope!
I thought it was a bishop.
Oh.
Yeah, I think he's a
I
bishop.
don't know.
What do you guys think about the war in Israel and Palestine?
Sorry.
What do you guys think about the situation in Israel and Palestine?
want people to stop dying like Donald Trump does. That's my
Same.
answer. I would like for people to stop dying. And to be able to afford groceries, again.
I'm of two minds on it. I'm personally more on the pro-Israel side, but I'm sort of passively pro-Israel, that I want us to kind of stay out of it.
I want people to stop dying as well, but I also think it's important to consider, like I mentioned earlier, about how we all have our different worldviews. And like if we consider the foundational worldview that a lot of people in Palestine hold, a lot of them are Muslims. And Muslims, if you're following the Quran and the Hadith, they want global domination. They want to wipe out everyone who doesn't worship Muhammad and their God. And so I think for us to skirt around that topic is what leads to a lot of this miscommunication about what the real issue is. And like this idea that we're gonna have to somehow stop the conflict. They're not gonna stop because that's literally their plan, that's their worldview, including us in this room. If we don't follow their God, it's either now or later. And so in my mind, yeah, I want that to stop, but I think I don't think we're looking at it at a deeper level.
Hi. First, I just want to say thank you for coming tonight and having a conversation. This is unusual for me, and especially credit to you for walking into the lines down. I mean, the reverse does not happen. So thank you.
You're right, it doesn't. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's free speech all the way. First Amendment, I love it. I want to be able to say what I want when I want, and have a conversation. I guess my question is simple. I know the Walkaway movement's been through a lot in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Where is it today?
Thank you. So in January 2021, 2 days after January 6th, Facebook banned our group. So we began as a Facebook group just because of like the functionality of Facebook worked the best for us because they have groups. In the groups, people can upload their own videos and posts. So we'd grown to over 511,000 people in our Facebook group, and we literally had tens of thousands of videos and written testimonials. On January 8th, Facebook banned our group with no explanation, no option for recourse or appeal, and we lost all the data, we lost our contacts, we lost everything. About 2 weeks after that, I was raided by the FBI, handcuffed, taken to jail, and my life became about fighting the federal government on bogus criminal charges, also related to January 6th, as well as a civil case and having to deal with the January 6th committee. Because I was arrested, and for anybody who doesn't know, on January 6th, I was standing outside of the Capitol. I didn't enter the building, but I did go to DC on January 6th. I was supposed to be a scheduled speaker, and I stood outside of the Capitol for 8 minutes shooting a video. She has a question too. And I uploaded my video to Twitter, and that was enough for the FBI to raid my home and take me to jail, and for the government to charge me with multiple felonies and a misdemeanor charge. I ultimately took a misdemeanor plea deal, but because I took that misdemeanor plea deal, even though I had no violent charges whatsoever, even with the felonies, I was never accused of any violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction. All of my charges were literally standing on grounds that I was not supposed to be standing on, essentially. Nonetheless, the left doesn't really draw any lines or distinction. It's just simply, you were a part of the insurrection. And since I was a part of the insurrection, we were permanently banned by PayPal, Venmo, Stripe, Patreon, 6 different email services, payment processors, banks. I was placed on a terrorism watch list, not able to get on an airplane without hours of security screening, flying with air marshals. I mean, the list is on and just unbelievable. So where we are today, we did launch a new Facebook group. It's growing slowly, much more slowly than we did the first time, but we're at about, 35,000 people right now. We launched our own app called Walkaway Social. We did that as sort of like a backup to the Facebook group. So our app it functions very similarly to Facebook, but people can join there, join our community, share their stories. And I gotta say, I don't know how we've survived this, but we have. I mean, we had this year, this is our 6th or 6th year, and we had, I think from a financial standpoint, our 2nd best year that we've ever had. So somehow people are still supporting us. We're still traveling the country doing our thing. People are still sharing their walkaway stories. And although it's been a really, really rough road, I mean, I think there are times I just think that I'm not being called upon necessarily to succeed like I was succeeding before January 6th. I think I'm just being called upon to stay in the fight. And that's what I intend to do, is just to stay in the fight as long as I possibly can.
So on that same note, I have to say, you're very intelligent, a master's degree, I do the Walkaway movement, and I really appreciate everything you brought to the table today.
Thank
My
you.
wife and I, we're fairly new to the movement, we're two members of the Facebook group, but we've encountered a lot of resistance to it, from friends, family, community. And we're trying to find healthy dialogue, but there's a lot of hate out there.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think the best way to approach these conversations, especially in such a trying time.
What is the best way to approach these conversations?
Yeah.
Okay, look, I always give this like kind of same piece of advice, which is that I base this off of my own experience that caused me to walk away. I'm not gonna tell the whole story. But basically I believed something about Trump that wasn't true. I was spouting off about it on social media. Somebody reached out to me privately and said, hey, I'm not trying to start a fight with you. I know you're really upset about this thing that you think about Trump. I'm just asking, have you seen this? And she sent me a video, and the video debunked this thing that I thought about Trump that wasn't true. But what was really powerful and effective about this is that, one, she didn't reach out to me and just be like, you're such a moron, you're so stupid, why do you think this? She literally just said, hey, will you watch this video and will you tell me what you think about it? I had to watch it 4 times before I was able to like emotionally and psychologically process, because I knew from the first time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, I'm totally wrong. Like, I'm totally wrong, but I couldn't accept it because nobody wants to think that they're wrong, right? So it took me a few days, but I finally got back to her and I was like, look, I appreciate you sending this to me. It's gonna take me a while to like process this and figure it out, but I appreciate that it meant enough, to you to contact me about this. And what I learned from that experience was, nobody, no matter whether you're on the right or the left or the middle or whatever, nobody likes to be pushed in a corner and have someone wag their finger at you and tell you that you're wrong. And it's an even worse feeling when you know that like you're presented with evidence that shows you that you're wrong, but the person is judging you or making you feel stupid or whatever. And what she did was she allowed me, without judgment, the space to absorb something that, and to take the time that I needed to do that and process it. So one, I always recommend to people, take an approach similar to that. Like if you see friends or family who are like, oh my God, Trump, and you find some sort of like compelling or powerful thing that sort of shows that he's not what they think that they are. I mean, I think if you can send that to somebody and be like, hey, I just watched this video and I think it's so interesting. I know you think that Trump is so this or that, but like, would you watch this and tell me what you think about it? Because I'm really interested to get your perspective on what this video means. The other thing I always tell people is that if you're engaging in a conversation with somebody on the left, try to establish what I call mutual core values, meaning that, because the left thinks that they sort of have this like chokehold on morality and goodness and all these different things, and I think that Republicans don't do a great job of explaining that conservatism is compassionate. And it's like, having a border wall, strong borders, or whatever the issue may be, gun control, or not gun control, Second Amendment rights, these are all actually very compassionate things and that actually help people, lift people up, improve people's lives. And so I think that if you can say like, oh, you care about racial minorities, or oh, you care about immigrants, so do I. Like, I'm very concerned about immigrants and racial minorities. That's why it's so important that we have strong borders. Because these communities are most disproportionately affected when we flood our country with illegal immigrants. They're being financially devastated by it. Crime is surging in their neighborhoods. Like, if you actually care about these different groups you claim to care about, you should embrace conservative policies because they're more compassionate than the things you believe in.
Yeah, it's not from a place of hate. We just want to make sure that we're going to be a better life. That's what it comes down to. But yeah, well said. And we do put humor in there where we're